Amanda, I think it's been about a year since you were on the podcast, close to it. I know that. And we've stayed in touch since then, and I'm sure a lot of stuff has changed. I know you mentioned that you wrote a book or you got one coming out very shortly. So, I mean, if you want, we could start diving into that, what got you started, whatever this book is about. And, we can go from there and see what kind of journey you had along the way in the past year or so.
Oh, well, first of all, Jonathan, thanks for having me back. And yeah, it's been great staying in touch with you, mostly through Facebook, Life's Checkmark. It's nice to see everybody else's stuff there. And what I really like and appreciate is the inspiration that other people are to one another, and you're nurturing that. And I think that's, really important to keep people on the positive vibes. So hopefully the dog isn't barking loud enough for everyone else to
You're
hear.
good. You're good.
Joys of working from home.
Yes.
So yeah, I have a book coming out. It'll be available in print on March 12th. So it's Blooming into Life. It's an energy healing journey. And I do have the website, bloomingintolifebook.com. And so you can more information and stay updated there. They call it a landing page. So I've done a whole lot of learning about the publishing and doing all of the things that it takes to publish a book. A lot of people say writing a book in and of itself takes a year, but I had some time off, if you will, after a surgery last spring. I had a hip replacement. And so I just kind of dug into my story. I was working with the Business Acceleration Network, and there's a lot of publishers and people writing there. And I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. I'm never going to write a book or anything. And then the more people I talked to, and I was telling my story, and I've done enough healing that my story is my story. It's not emotional. And if telling my story, my healing story of tagline is, shit happened, I got through it, you can too, gotcha. So just in my story of going through the hurdles of life, don't really fit any of my hurdles were any different from your hurdles or the hurdles that so many people experience, but I'm able to look back at those genuinely and see the lessons and the blessings that came from them. And I'm moving forward and ability to help other people. And so part of my story and the journey is learning the process. Do we want to pause this for a sec? Okay. Ready. So being able to go through my own journey, my own healing, being inspired to take the theta healing classes. Theta is the energy healing modality that I use the most. And when I've got 6 certifications in theta healing, and I really enjoy helping people to get unstuck from wherever they are in their life, whatever it has to do with. And sometimes people come and they're like, their ops, what do you think's getting in your way? And then we look at that and we see where that is so that they can address that issue and put it where it belongs and move on. And the best I like about theta is that you don't have to tell your whole story. You don't have to relive it and go through the traumas again. Oh, that's what I like. So that's what my book is, Blooming into Life. And it's my story. Some client stories and testimonials in there, case studies as well. So yeah, and continuing to build my business. So Amanda Beth Healing, and just growing that. I completed my homeopathy certification. So I do homeopathy consultations as well, and doing some work with the stem cell patches, the X39 patches, bringing that into, just kind of doing that whole holistic thing, which all of that relates to my float center that I opened like 8.5 years ago. So I still have the float center as well, and just really practicing that holistic approach to people.
Cool. So you had surgery, right? And we don't have to go backwards and for the reasons why and stuff. But you were basically, I guess, homebound in a sense, right? And you could have just sat there and did nothing, but instead you looked at it as an opportunity and you wrote this book, right? That's how I'm looking at it, right?
Yeah, it was, and considering I had like no interest, but then it's like, yeah, we can do this. And they say people a year to write a book, even people who just take time off just to write that book. So I wrote it. I've worked with Christy Boyd Johnson. She was the developmental editor. And when you're writing a book, I feel like she took a lot out of the book, but not really. You get so close to work and have someone else, say, hey, this is, you've talked about this too long, or this isn't important. And so, put it all out there. It's much easier to fill the pages and then cut it down to what it needs to be to hold your audience's attention.
Yeah, I like that. So I never wrote a book, and I'm sure there's other people that, haven't done so as well, and they're interested in doing something sometime down. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's going to hear that. Anyways, I have interest in writing a book sometime, and, I'm sure others do as well. So, I mean, like, I know this was new for you. So did you have problems finding the publisher or editor or whatever the word it is that you start with? If I'm saying it wrong, just correct me.
I think that it was my involvement in a networking business group that had a lot of authors. There was a couple publishers and editors that were in that group. So I was exposed to them, and I already felt that I knew them to take on this project. And when I first started writing it, I didn't know that I would finish it. So that was huge. But what I've learned the most in the book writing process and the publishing process. Now, it hasn't been released as of today, but there's so much work to be a successful author, because books honestly don't make the author a lot of money. It's not a money-making adventure. It's a huge learning process, but if you do with that book, having the opportunity to talk on a podcast of, this is my book and this is what I do and this is how I did it, that's, it's the new business card. Yeah. And so figuring that out and going through the process and preparing the social media post and just how you go about doing that. And I think that, yes, self-publishing is clearly an option for people. And I just felt for my first book, when I needed someone to tell me it was something that should be published or not. And yeah, that was how I continued to work with other people and get things so that it's right.
And then, so the process, right? You just wanted somebody to push you and move along, and then you get it completed, and that's just sitting around and wondering what's the next step. And, so reaching out and finding those coaches and, teachers, mentors, whatever, right, to help guide you along is very crucial. So that's good.
There's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of, everyone's put out their own opinion of how you do it, what's best practice. Well, that's what's best practice for their book, and it might not be for my book.
Yeah.
And so I felt that was the advantage of going with a publisher who works with all kinds of books and that could make some recommendations.
Right. So outside of the book being published, and this is just another avenue, right? I mean, what are your hopes of this book being in somebody's hands?
It's my hope that people will see that life doesn't have to be a drudgery and have to be a challenge, that it's relatable in that they can see themselves at some point along a journey, and that they're able to reach out and find help, whether they reach out to me for some help or just seeing that there is a light at the tunnel and it's not a freight train. There is something more to be had with being happy and positive and having a better outcome in your life. Kind of niche to working with people that are going through a divorce or gone through a divorce, and realizing that a divorce is not a failure, not fatal, but it's an opportunity to change, put it into that chapter. Marriage is in for all kinds of reasons. And sometimes it's just because we've outgrown them or we didn't get along. There's the whole host. We could talk for hours on why people do that. But for some people, understanding that they weren't a failure, the marriage lived its course, and giving them an opportunity to make changes in their life so that they can move forward and set the pace on what they want now. So niching into that divorce stuff, and so working on that area well, and just, life's better. It's what we make it, and giving you the confidence and empowering you to make those decisions. I want to help people shorten their journey.
Yeah. So
what we can do with it.
Yeah. How much of the book does it focus on that divorce part?
There's a couple chapters. Yeah, there's just a couple chapters. Yeah, it's not a book about divorce.
Right.
It's a book about so many adversities and just overcoming them and finding your own intuition and being able to move forward. So.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that you kind of took your journey and put into a book. So you have all these little, stories along the way sharing. So that's one of them. So I'll touch on this with you a little bit. So I would agree with what you had to say with the whole divorce thing, right? So at first, people might feel like their whole life went to shit, and then I guess after you look at things from a different point of view, you, just like you mentioned, you can see things as an opportunity, right? And nothing against the other person. It's just, like you said, something happened, things shifted, you went in a different direction than that other person. They didn't want to follow, whatever, right? And you are where you are. But it's getting in that moment to say, this is okay. Like, I will live, and there are other people that have gone through it. I can go through it too. I just maybe you have to reach out for support. It's just that moment. So that's kind of tough because, those people fall into that trap. They just get in a hole where they don't know where to turn. They think that their lives are ruined. Yeah. So having that in there, I think that's great. I don't know everything about the divorce story of your journey, but it's something to be shared. Even sometimes you hear a lot of it out there, but then also you hear the other side where it's not, they make it so it's not good, right? But it's also could be good.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No. And I think that my book just, it's meant to be inspiring. You're not supposed to get depressed and poo-hoo or feel sorry for me. These are things that happened, and they happen to, unfortunately, too many people, where that dream of the marriage doesn't turn out the way you thought it was going to. And going through those stages of grief, essentially, there's the shock, there's the denial, there's, bargaining and acceptance and all those things, that when you work with someone who can help you see those things and identify them, do some healing work around it, see how you got hung up on something or where you had misinformation in life. I think society's just kind of, they've jaded how things are. And I'm not pro-divorce. I'm not. If you come to me and we can save your marriage, that is awesome.
Right.
I'm not pro-divorce. But sometimes, having that restart,
Yeah, sometimes that's where you find yourself, like you were going down the wrong path anyways, and you just didn't know that.
I think that's what it was. That was the final straw that made me open my eyes and look around and see, gosh, this is not what I want my life to be. I want to make a change, make a conscious change. So
cool. What other, is there another story you could pull out of there that you can share with us?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think that one of the bigger takeaways is so many things that I did throughout my life. Um, I were intuition based. And then when children came along, when I had kiddos and working more in mainstream, so those weren't things you talked about. Society doesn't support people who talk about being intuitive, or saying, oh, we're going to have a store because it's Sally's needs acting up. I think that our culture has gotten away from allowing us to use and access our intuition because we're souls having a human experience. We bring a lot of life experience with us into this life, and being able to tune into yourself, tune into your heart, and know that you know these things and to trust it. And so looking at things, and I was a social worker for years. I did graphic design and promotional marketing for years, and putting all that away. And then as I started using my intuition to help people, I started saying things like, oh, let me put my social worker hat on and let me ask you questions. And it's like, no, that wasn't Susie social worker. That was my intuition years ago that allowed me to work with people more quickly and more efficiently to reach their goal. I didn't have to take it out of a textbook or something that I watched a video on or anything, which there weren't videos when I was a kid growing up. But no, it wasn't something that I had formal education on. And being able to get back in touch with me, with that intuition. And so the book talks a lot about, just reconnecting with that intuition to be your inner guide.
So would you call yourself like intuitive healer? Is that what you would say? Or yeah,
intuitive healer, energy healer. Yeah. Kind of, it's funny, the terms that, different circles use different terms.
Yeah, whatever resonates with that person, I guess, is what's best, right?
Yeah. And I find myself picking up the title, don't like energy practitioner, because practitioner is a hard word. So, and as you pick those things, but yeah, a healer at heart.
Okay. And so with this book coming out, right? So what's the next move? You're gonna have this book come out. Obviously, you're promoting it. You're gonna, hopefully get in the hands of the people that they can help them. So then, what happens after that?
Oh gosh, what's next? I would like to do more speaking engagements, do live not entertainment. Gosh, that's horrible. But just be a speaker. Just go around and inspire people to get out of their own way, get unstuck, and do something they want to do that brings them joy and happiness, because that's what life's about, is finding your joy and finding happiness.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Without joy and happiness, you're just getting up and doing it all again every day.
Right, which can drive you nuts. Oh man.
And that's where you get stuck.
That's where you get stuck. So I gotta ask this question. You were sitting around, you started writing your book and stuff. So like, when did you finish the book to where you healed from your surgery and stuff? Like when did that come into play where you could start walking around, do things more that maybe you lost track of time to finish your book? I don't know. I'm just asking these questions.
I think that I first set out with, so actually I started my book with my power bio. So I have a power bio, and when you write your power bio, you put down all the brag things about yourself, and it feels really icky to write your power bio. When your power bio, that becomes your new resume. That allows people, and I've got my long one's around 800 words. I've got it down to, 150, 200 words. But just explaining who I am, what I've done. I've got 30 years in life. I started in emergency medicine. I've been a social worker, the graphic design, following up all the volunteer stuff I've done with 30 years with the American Red Cross, with hospice, with a couple of local boards, and just doing those things, and having children and having the float business. finding the healing business. And so I just threw all of that. I threw my Power Bio into ChatGPT and asked it to write an outline. And so that's where I started, was with that outline. And it outlined 8 chapters, and that's the length of an average memoir type book. And I looked at the chapters. I'm like, yeah, these don't make any sense. But they gave me a starting point to be able to say, okay, this is important, this is important, this is important. And that's how I went through it, was to, okay, let's write a chapter on this. Let's write a chapter on that. And including the struggles in my life. I mean, one of my bigger struggles is I'm dyslexic and dysgraphic. So going through the college experience, the whole middle school, high school experience, I was not a good student. And I still work with those things and I struggle. So my writing process, I have a crazy idea and I write it down on my notebook and then get out and I dictate it into some software. It's typed. And so I go through and proof it from there because Lord knows we can't read my handwriting. So just kind of finding that process and, letting people know. And there were a couple times in my life that I don't anymore. And, I don't talk a lot about it in the book, talk about the struggle. It was real. And I found ways to adapt and to rise above it and to go on and do something different. And when I felt I was whole, then I was able to turn around and help other people to be whole again.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like you just want to go that direction and just start helping more and more people, right? And it's not just a book, it's you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You speaking and all those.
It's talking to people and inspiring them. And if they don't come work with me, find someone to work with, find one to inspire you to keep going and to make every day better. Get out of bed and be happy. Look at those gratitude practices, really great thing, self-care you do. Those things all add up. Just drinking your water every day. That's incredible. Being thankful that you woke up alive this morning. You still had the heat on, you still had electric, you have a place to sleep. Being thankful for those little things. They get bigger. As you look for more positive things, you see more positive things. You look for negative, you bet it's going to be negative. Mm-hmm. You miss pouring your coffee into your cup and it's all over the countertop. Well, I'm thankful it didn't get onto the floor because I didn't want to bend over to do that. I'm thankful it's there.
Yeah.
So yeah, learning that gratitude.
That's awesome. So since us talking and being connected for almost a year now, and thankfully we were able to connect through a mutual friend and, the connection grows, right? So real quick, what are your thoughts on connecting with other people? Like, what does it take from you as a person trying to reach out to somebody to where maybe you might break it off because they respond back to you or something? What are your thoughts on something like that?
To reach out to people and if they're aligned with you. Not everyone is someone you want to be in contact with. Vibrational energy is a real thing. And so the more you surround yourself with like-minded people, and I am in, probably 3 or 4 different networking groups, and some I really, really look forward to. Others, they're not as much fun. And so I don't attend those. And I look for another one that has more like-minded people who are supportive of each other, because, and I've said this, I've been self-employed for over 20 years. And so in those 20 years, I have always said, my business is only as good and as strong as your business is. If you're not successful, I'm not successful. And I'm in a very small rural town, and it is so important that we all support each other, and so at what point do I decide that I don't want to work with someone or I don't want to be a part of a group? Have fun. Listen, and I'm happy to help anybody that's willing to help themselves. I used to be a giver, an overgiver, and when you give to your point of there's nothing left to you, that's when the anger comes out. You want to blow up at the end of the day. You gave too much.
Right.
So it has to be a give and a receive. And I don't think it's 50-50 necessarily, but they have to be people that fill your life with joy. They have other things to offer you and you can offer them. There's an exchange of positive energy.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes to there's a breaking point, right? You can only reach out so many times, and hopefully that person's not bringing you down, and you just set that with your networking groups, the ones that fill you up, keep you moving and motivated. They're the ones you want to jump into. And I want to mention, I think you got to a higher level, right? I know you hear about it all over the place anymore, but you're growing, so you start to see people at a different level. So they might be below you a little bit, and they might look up to you. They might start looking up to you, follow you. So yeah, connecting with those people around you to support you, and you try to become better than them, and then reach up higher. That's important. I do,
and I don't know that it's being better than them, but it's helping them on the journey too. And if they don't want to be on the journey, then that's when they pick up a different train car. Right. When they don't want to be there, don't want to be a part of it. Some people just self-regulate themselves out. They realize that I'm not their cup of tea, or this group isn't for them. And so, yeah, some people just, it's like when people unfriend you on Facebook. They took out the trash. It's okay. You don't have to worry about it. Nothing personal. Nothing personal. They took out their trash. It's okay. They probably weren't somebody that was contributing positively in your life.
Yep, exactly right.
Oh.
Yep. So things come and go, and it's just what happens with some connections as well.
I think part of it is not having an attachment to everything. When you have an attachment to the outcome, then it's ride or die. Mm-hmm. And the reality is if it's meant to be, it will be.
Right.
And so being less attached.
Yeah, attached. And I would add on, not being expected of them to reply or whatever, come back at you, and say something to you. So show up without expectations, then you become attached. Where are they at? Oh. So Amanda, I think what you're doing is great. I can't wait to see your book come out, and I'll read it, and you just let me know when it's coming out, for sure. And I'll put your link and everything, in the show notes for people to download it, click, buy it, whatever it is that you're doing. So I already know, the 3 key things you learned in your journey, when I asked you almost a year ago. So I'm just gonna wing it here and just add, ask what is your number one value?
Oh, I'm gonna say gratitude, being thankful. You can't be thankful, then stay home.
Yeah.
So the value of gratitude, positivity, networking, those things, all the things that are good.
And
those are my values.
And do you think that gratitude brings happiness?
I do believe so. When you are thankful and grateful for something, then more comes to you. There's more abundance, more love, more positivity. And if you're positive, then
yeah,
right.
Yeah, you have a deeper feeling of joy and excitement. Yeah, cool. Amanda, thank you again for connecting and us staying connected since last time, and I appreciate you coming back on.
Well, thanks for having me. I do appreciate that, and you've got some exciting stuff coming up too. So I'm eager to continue to follow you and watch that unfold for you as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.